Bitcoin has always worked like this.
So what does it mean to burn a UTXO?
It's shitcoining on Bitcoin.
Yeah, and this isn't a Nostr podcast. It's a Bitcoin podcast.
There is a way to stop it.
If you don't know this, you're not a Bitcoiner. It's Mandana.
And Ian.
Welcome to Flirting with Bitcoin.
Season 3.
That's right. 3 years ago, I tricked Ian into a weekly date night.
I let you trick me so I could teach you about Bitcoin.
Well, it worked. I'm very excited for the halving.
You should be. Bitcoin's about to do what Bitcoin's about to do.
Ooh, okay then. Keon, can we start the show?
Okay.
Let's go.
Hey, Ian.
Hey, Mandana.
Are you ready?
I'm always ready.
Today I want to talk about what happened after the halving.
What happened after the halving? That's very vague.
You tell me.
I don't know what you're referring to, so I don't know what to respond to.
There was an energy shift, babe. Everyone in Bitcoin is fighting right now. Like, the vibes were so good before we went in. Yeah. And now the vibes are off.
Okay, you're probably talking about the block fees and a new Bitcoin. What is it? It's not NFTs. They're called
Ordinals?
No, they're called runes.
Oh, I don't know what runes are. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is a new thing. It just launched on the 840th block.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the 840th block, I think the total reward was like 40 Bitcoin, which the person was supposed to get like
3.
And they got 40 or something. It was a large number. It's either 40 or 70.
Ooh, 70.
The reason why it was so high is because of these things called runes. And so the Bitcoin community is having its eternal fight, which is Bitcoin only for money, or is Bitcoin for anything you can think of? Like, who are you to say how I should use Bitcoin or not? Like, that's the fight that's happening because the fees were too high.
I don't even understand what you just said.
All right, well, I guess that's what the episode's about.
But before we get into it, let's say hi to our listeners. Hola, Spain.
Namaskara, Nepal.
Guten Tag, Germany.
Hola, Brazil.
Sawadee, Thailand.
G'day, UK.
Good day, Canada.
Hola, Argentina.
Buongiorno, Italy.
Namaste, Bharat.
Kamusta, Philippines.
Bonjour, France.
Hola, Portugal.
Hello, Indonesia.
Hello, Netherlands.
Konnichiwa, Japan.
Batam, Poland.
Zdraveyete, Bulgaria.
You struggle every time.
I've been saying it wrong. I listened to it again. I'm trying to say it correctly.
All right, say it again.
Zdraveyete.
All right, I don't know. That doesn't sound right. All right, hola, Venezuela.
G'day, Australia.
Hola, Mexico.
What's up, Nigeria?
And howdy to Texas. What time is it, babe?
The current time is 8:40-735, and we're approximately 1,483 blocks since our last recording.
And are we going to say how many blocks till the next halving?
You betcha.
We are? Okay, go for it.
So, happy Halving's Day. The clock starts all over again. We are approximately 209,265 blocks until the next halving.
I guess this is still going to help me, think of the blocks as time, but I don't know. I feel like numbers like that are just silly.
You know what we could do?
Mm-hmm.
We could say number of blocks since the halving.
I like that
halfway,
more. I like that more.
Count down the other way.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Okay, I like that.
All right. So we are approximately 735 blocks since
That's
the halving.
That's an easier way to show it. Yeah. I like that more. I like that a lot more.
Cool.
Ladies, get you a man who compromises. All right, let's get to the Satoshi Price Index. What's going on? If I gave you $1, how many acres can I get on sunny Bitcoin Island?
You could get 1,559 acres, aka Satoshis, for $1.
All right, I'm getting used to that price.
The 1,500 price range?
Yeah. Is 65 the new floor?
No, we fell below 65.
You know, the hover floor, but I guess that's not a real floor.
That's not yeah.
Yeah, that's a
you bounce off
cloud.
Floors or you crash through them. There's a little bit of Bitcoin fundamentals going on right now. Yes, the halving happened. Yes, the supply got cut in half, but there's still enough people willing to sell. So the price isn't driving up that much, but the expectation of that selling pressure or the people willing to sell is expected to be out in like the next 9 months. So it won't be exactly at 9 months, but as we get close to this 9-month window, there'll be fewer and fewer sellers.
What does that mean? Why?
So Bitcoin is what's called a Veblen good, which means as the price goes up, more people want it.
Mm-hmm.
And because more people want it, the inverse of that is that fewer people will sell it or will trade for it.
Mm-hmm.
As the price goes up, fewer hodlers are willing to part with any of it because they're like, well, I want to see how high it goes before I part with any of it.
Yeah, but I guess some people just need to because they need the money.
I mean, there are a significant number of Bitcoiners that buy and sell Bitcoin on a regular basis. Either they trade it to just try to make money off the difference, or they're running a business like miners, and miners have to actually sell, right? Like their input is electricity. Their output is Bitcoin, and so they sell their product.
That makes a lot of sense. I wasn't thinking about miners at all. I was really just like really surprised that anyone would be selling their Bitcoin right now.
Yeah, and we can get more into that in the show because the miners are part of the what's going on with the fees topic of the day, right? But let's finish out the opening of the show, and then we can get into all of that fun stuff.
I mean, I'm not really looking forward to it, but I think I need to understand it.
So just so that we're clear, you pressed record and brought up the topic that you don't want to talk about.
I mean, I'm going to make it interesting for myself, but I'm going to cut you off when I'm like, I don't feel like I need to know that. But now let's get to the Satoshi Price Index, brought to you by pricedinbitcoin21.com. You like that, babe?
Sounds real. Sounds like a real thing.
It does. It is a real thing, right?
I mean, I think it's real. We just have to make more people know about it.
So what is the Satoshi Price Index today?
Well, as of recording, the Satoshi Price Index is up 1.9%.
And that means?
Things got 1.9% more expensive for you if you live on a Bitcoin standard. So this is one of those days where things got more expensive for you. But if you look at it over the past 365 days, things have gotten a lot cheaper for you.
That's true.
So we're going to call it out episode to episode, but we all know if you've been in it for the last 4 years, things have got cheaper for you.
Yeah, but you know, I think tracking the Satoshi Price Index is important for someone who might be trying to figure out how to full-time live on the Bitcoin standard, right?
We don't have the data that you would really need to do that, right? Because we're just talking about commodity goods. And so the price that we say is not the price you're going to see in the grocery store, but it does.
Assumptions that could be made. It's like correlations with like the price in the grocery store.
This is just one of those things that gives you confidence, that helps you build the conviction that you could live on that standard, right? So like if you constantly see prices falling, you might be more confident to say, you know what, I'm done with my job today. I have enough Bitcoin and I think it's going to appreciate this much and I can live off of it as long as it keeps going down this much. At the end of the day, you do need numbers to make that decision.
The Satoshi Price Index going down, not the price.
Yes. Obviously, the price of Bitcoin going up is one thing, but tying it to real goods that you use, you see the cost of your day-to-day going down, not just the random spikes in Bitcoin over like 3 months.
Yeah, you like experience deflation.
Exactly. And that's something that, you know, I think a lot of people just can't fathom because none of us have lived in a deflating world. So we have some data. It's not the best data to apply to everyone, but it is data. And just to drive that point home, eggs are 4,900 Satoshis for a dozen. Beef is 5,300 Satoshis for a kilogram of beef. Gas is 3,600 Satoshis for a gallon of gas. Cheese is 2,800 Satoshis for a pound of cheese. Corn is 6,600 Satoshis for a pound of corn. Gold is actually up over 3 million Satoshis now. Last episode, we were sub 3. So like when the first digit changes is when you know like there's been some movement. But yeah, you can get an ounce of gold for 3 million Satoshis and you can get a new house in America for 6.7 Bitcoin, which would be 670 million 670 million Satoshis.
One day houses will be $670 million. The rate we're going.
No, I don't think so.
No, I mean, who knows what could happen to the dollar? That has literally happened to currencies in other countries.
This is part of the argument for why people think Bitcoin won't exist or won't work, is that in order to go to a world where everyone's using Bitcoin, all these currencies basically have to collapse. right? And all I'm saying is that I don't think the currencies will collapse before the prices of the assets do. So like right now, buying a house is really hard. Interest rates are up and prices are expensive. So fundamentally, the prices of houses have to come down in dollar terms as well as Bitcoin appreciates. So like, I don't think houses will ever be in the millions of dollar, like I don't think our house would be worth 10 or $100 million in the future.
Because Bitcoin will prevent that.
I think that our house might never appreciate past the point that we bought it at. I think that's more possible than the other side.
If one Bitcoin is worth $1 million, then it's worth, let's say in 15 years, one Bitcoin is worth $1 million.
Okay.
$1 million is going to be worth much less than it is today.
Yeah, but I'm saying that Bitcoin will be much less. More than $1 million in 15 years. No need to really haggle over this. It's just a math problem, and you pick the weights that you want to apply. Yeah. And all I'm applying more weight to. I
haven't done the math. That's why I feel like I need to just sit down and think about this.
Well, this is one of the things that, a lot of the numbers that I quote for the show, we keep in a spreadsheet, we track from week to week. But one of the things I want to do is I want to start putting things in there that, let's just say, we want, right? And we will just pick a threshold at which, when this becomes a certain number of Satoshis, we will get it.
Could this be a yacht?
Oh no. I was saying this for the couch.
Oh, okay.
But
Ian has been nonstop watching videos about yachts and just being like, not that we're ever going to do it, but if we were ever going to do it, this would be what to do. We would buy the yacht and we would just live on the yacht, go port to port.
So Mondan is leaving out a very important part of why I'm watching these videos. I'm started watching a lot of these yacht videos. Yes, I find yachting and like boating and sailing interesting. I always have before Bitcoin, actually. I've been starting to apply what it means to be a boat owner and live on a boat and like have, let's just say, the majority of your possessions you take with you and you can travel the world on that boat. One of the things that Bitcoiners are fighting against is the state. And so if you have all your possessions on a boat that can get up and move, I'm kind of in my head making the argument that like, I feel like Bitcoiners are the new pirates. And so that's why I've been watching a lot of these, because like in my mind, I'm like, it would be really cool if there was like a Bitcoin flotilla, a lot of different people with boats that we kind of like sailed around the world. We pull into your town, Bitcoiners show up for like a month or two, then we just roll out, right? Like in that world, well, what kind of boats could do that? That's really where I am right now. And so, yes,
you're so cute, babe.
You could have like these Jeff Bezos like mega yachts, right? Where you're like, there's like, that the boat is big enough to have, let's just say like 50 Bitcoiners on it, right? And you're just like trolling around with your friends for like the rest of your life because Bitcoin's appreciating faster than all these fiat currencies, right? So you could just literally do that for the rest of your life. Or, a more reasonable kind of aspiration of this flotilla is that it's a bunch of sailboats, because this way you will always have a means of transportation.
But you're not looking up at sailboats. You've been looking at yachts, like 4-story yachts.
Oh, I've been watching both. Like you just see the yacht ones, but no, I've been watching a lot of sailing videos actually.
And so when are we going sailing?
We live close to Annapolis, so it's not hard for us to do. I mean, if you're down, I'd like to go.
I'm your wife. Yes, okay. I'm down.
Okay, but
what else am I doing but hanging out with you?
But what I'm getting at is like, if you're down, we could go. The other part of it is that like, we have Keon. So it's either like, are we bringing Keon on the boat and he experiences it? If that's the case, then like not anytime this year.
We have babysitters. Let's make it a date.
Okay. So we're going sailing, everyone. So we can find out how nautical Mandana really is.
I've gone sailing before.
I believe you.
Yeah. I went with my friends in Nantucket. I didn't do anything though. We had a captain.
Yeah, that's also part of this, is that I feel like if we can orange pill some boat captains, we can make this happen. We don't have to know how to sail. Like we Bitcoiners, we don't need to know how to sail. We just need to orange pill some boat captains and they can drive the flotilla around and they can show us how to do it. I think it's possible. I got to like put this down like on paper, but I've been watching a lot of stuff and I think this might be like, I don't want to say my calling because that sounds extreme.
Oh my God, I love that though.
But like, I find this idea very intriguing.
Oh my God, babe, I'm excited for my heart kind of fluttered when you said my calling.
Like I said, I think that's a little extreme, but I do think that if you really want to talk about freedom, which Bitcoiners are about, the only way to get true freedom is to be able to arbitrage your location. And fundamentally, if you're living in some city anywhere in the world, it is hard to arbitrage your location because you have to somehow coordinate moving all of your stuff to some new place, and you have to like find where that new place is. Whereas if your life is on a boat, you just have to find the new location. Everything comes with you. And so Bitcoiners being more mobile and more fluid and being like, oh, the government of whatever that was friendly to us yesterday is no longer friendly. Well, then the flotilla just pulls out and leaves. Bye. Like, where are we going, everybody? And if we have sailboats, there's very few places we can't get to.
I just want to insert like a placeholder for a Bitcoin booty joke.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. I kind of came up with that like right before we went to the Halving party in El Salvador. And I've been watching a lot of videos about boats ever since to like really try to get that idea in my head of like, what would this look like? And the more videos I watch about just boating and boat culture and all of that, there's definitely some Bitcoiners in there for sure, because there's a lot of overlap, very similar to the surfer culture, where it's like, I think these cultures have a lot of overlap, but they just don't interact because of, reasons and, historical reasons really. But now with the internet, it's like, there's no reason for us to not cross-pollinate. We need some boat captains in the Bitcoin community. And I got one guy that I can call. And if I can get him on board, he can get me at least 5 other boat captains for sure.
All right, baby, this might be your calling.
DC would be home base, and then we'd have a boat. Maybe we go boating somewhere. As long as it's, like on the Atlantic side of things. If we got to get to the Pacific side, then it gets more complicated.
I mean, we'll figure it out.
Or, I don't know, maybe we have another boat in the Pacific. I don't know.
There you go, baby. Problem solving. That's my man.
I mean, it's either that or you got to sail through the Panama Canal or around. I don't know. It's a thing. We'll figure it out.
Hey, it's Mandana. We're in season 3, The Halving, and I'm making sure we drop a new episode every week. We are dreaming big for flirting with Bitcoin, and the only thing standing in our way is time and money. Let me be transparent and talk real numbers. Through value for value, our listeners directly paid us 100,000 sats in season 1. Season 2, we made 1 million sats. Of course, now we gotta see if we can 10x again and reach 10 million sats this season. # relationship goals. If we earn 10 million sats from the work we put into this podcast, it'll be the sign that one of us can do this part-time, maybe even full-time. Send us Bitcoin or shop our merch store. It all helps with the goal. You can also give us an old school shout out on social, listen to us on your favorite Podcasting 2.0 app, or make and share clips of the show. Your support in any form is value we appreciate. Go to flirtingwithbitcoin.com/support and let's experience value for value together.
All right. So that was a crazy boat tangent, but I think it's important to talk about because I'm also curious to hear what you guys think about that idea. But before we get into the show, just want to do a little housekeeping.
Housekeeping for the show. Check out our merch store at store.flirtingwithbitcoin.com. We have some really cute stuff up there, and it's a fun way to support us. We have a Telegram group, t.me/flirtingwithbitcoin. Our YouTube channel is up, Flirting with Bitcoin, and we have a Wavelength account now, and so the pod is up there. Our Twitter is Flirting with BTC. I'm actually running that account. If you want to connect with Ian, his is ONESIEN, Onision. On Instagram, we're Flirting with Bitcoin. On Nostr, there's a link in the description. And if you want to subscribe to our podcast, go to flirtingwithbitcoin.com. Okay, so leading up to the halving, it was exciting. Everyone was just like, oh my God, this is going to change everything. People don't even know what's going to happen. We are Bitcoiners. We are love. We are together. It's been amazing going through this with you guys. We are, we're going to make it. We're all going to make it. Like that was the energy, right? It was like, ooh, powerful. And then the halving happened. You were looking at your phone a bit and I tried to like make sense of it. And you said something and I was like, well, whatever, the halving happened. And then the next day, because, now I'm on like Nostr and Twitter, people were upset and like arguing with each other. And it was just like party hangover, right?
I mean, that's one way to describe it. I also
And
think
it's been downhill since.
I also think that you haven't been participating in that world long, so you might feel like the vibes changed a little bit, but fundamentally, like, these are the default vibes. So like,
that's interesting.
so like there are these moments where like
default, everyone's fighting.
Not that everyone's fighting, it's that there are no leaders. Again, this is another idea that like I think many people cannot fathom, but like nobody is in charge. So when it comes to how anything with Bitcoin should work, everyone's opinion is valid. You just agree with certain opinions and don't with others. But specifically what happened with the halving is that a new NFT ordinal thing launched called...
What does that mean? Launched? Like people just added it, or it was always going to be there after this halving?
The product was announced that it was going to launch on that block.
Oh, so it's just going to be used. It's something that's going to run on the protocol.
Yes.
Okay. And take up space on the protocol.
Yes. And so fundamentally what it does is it incentivizes people to want to get certain transactions in on certain blocks. That's like a very generic way of describing it. But if you could get a transaction in on that specific block.
Why would you want a specific block?
Because people think there's value. This is the whole idea behind what's being launched, is that there is a thesis that there is value in UTXOs that are created in that specific block. And so people were creating transactions that would have gotten them a UTXO in that block, and they were paying ridiculous fees to make sure that they were in that block.
And what do you think personally?
About what?
If there's value in a specific UTXO block?
I mean, fundamentally, I don't think that there is. But this is one of those things where if it can be done, someone's going to try to do it. And so the downside is that because all these people were trying to get transactions into that particular block, the mempool backed up. You know about mempool now.
Let's remind me.
Okay. So the mempool is basically all the transactions that have been broadcast, right? Not everything has been written to a block yet, but think of a database of transactions that need to be entered into the blockchain.
In the queue.
They're in the queue, right? And so
why did they call it the mempool and not the queue? Just to be different.
I'm not going to explain software engineering to you. It is a mempool.
Okay.
To get your transaction into the block, you basically bid up the fact that I will pay more if you include my transaction than someone else's.
And this never existed until now?
No, this is how Bitcoin works.
Oh, okay.
So this is my point, is that Bitcoin has always worked like this. You have to pay a fee. You, the person who's creating the transaction, picks the amount that you're willing to pay. And then a miner goes, well, it is in my best interest to put together the block that will give me the most money. So the people who bid the highest end up in the next block. Okay.
So it's not that like 40 Bitcoin were mined. It's that 3 Bitcoin were mined. And then there were added fees.
There was 37 Bitcoin worth of fees.
Okay.
From people trying to get their transaction.
And they were willing to pay those fees.
They were willing to pay those fees.
Consensual.
Yes. Yeah. And they had to pay those fees. Not only they were willing, is that when the transactions went through, they no longer had that Bitcoin, right? It was all how Bitcoin is designed to work. The problem is that there's a significant number of people, technically myself included, who don't think that there are transactions that UTXOs have value like that.
For people who believe that it has value, what are they describing? How are they describing the value that specifically has, more so than another UTXO?
Their thesis is that you can put serial numbers on Satoshis, and that if you can get the first Satoshi or a specific Satoshi in that block, that a Satoshi in the halving block is worth more than a Satoshi in the block after the halving. Like, that's their thesis. So like uniqueness is valuable. And so they were willing to spend a lot of Bitcoin.
Oh, kind of like how pennies from a certain year.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. The difference is that the reason why...
No disrespect if you think that has value, but I'm just like, come on.
No, but the pennies example, there actually is a difference, because in certain pennies, there's different amounts of copper. And so they fundamentally are worth different amounts, because if one penny is 100% copper and another penny is 1% copper, they have to have different values. Because if we melt that down, you're going to get a lot more copper wire out of one, the 1 penny that's pure versus the 1 penny that has no copper in it.
But then you look at people who do like collectibles. Those are going to be the people. Maybe they're like, oh, I want 1 UTXO from every single halving ever. And like, look, they'll pay anything for it.
They are more than, in my opinion, I don't think there's any value to that. So I'm never going to participate in that. Right. That being said, fundamentally, what was done was all capable of being done. You could argue that new functionality was added to Bitcoin that made that possible. But fundamentally, bidding up your transaction to get included in the next block is exactly how Bitcoin works. That is the whole purpose of the miners. The miners are incentivized to put together the most valuable block. And so you have to be able to bid your transaction up. That being said, because the mempool got backed up, fees got ridiculous. I think I saw at one point, I looked over at my Umbral and it was like over like 100 sats per VByte, which normally it's around 10 or less.
Does that mean we made money?
That doesn't mean anything for you.
Oh.
We're not a miner.
I know. I thought maybe through our node.
That's Lightning. Completely different.
Yeah, you're right.
Lightning has a part of this, but fundamentally, Lightning had nothing to do with this. This is all about the fees that the miners get. This Runes project put a bunch of transactions in the mempool. It got bid up, and then not everyone got their transaction in that block. So there's like this tail effect of all those backed up transactions to clear the mempool. Well, people bid a pretty high price and didn't get in. So multiple blocks after that, the fees were high still. And so people were complaining, saying, oh, this Runes thing is making the Bitcoin blockchain unusable. It's an attack vector. These Runes guys are bad people because they built this thing. I don't think they're bad people. I mean, I wish they wouldn't have done it from what I understand about it. But again, like if we want to say that this thing is open, this protocol is open and anyone can just build on it, someone built a thing that was possible.
Like
so
when you're saying, oh, if this is what we want anyone to be able to do anything. Is there a way to stop it?
There is a way to stop it.
How?
You could stop it at the miner level. So at the end of the day, miners pick the transactions that are included. So if all the miners got together and said, hey, you know what? We're not going to include transactions from this Runes project if they could identify them as such, right? If you could do that, then you could fundamentally filter those transactions out.
Why wouldn't miners want it? They make more money.
Right. So this is why you could never do it, because there will always be someone who's willing to mine those blocks because it's just fees to them. So you could filter them out. They would stay in the mempool. Eventually, some enterprising person would say, well, I'm going to mine them if you won't, unless you got all the miners to not mine them. But as long as there's one person willing to mine them, they may get lucky, find the block, include those transactions, and boom, your transactions get through. It's just that no miner was filtering them out. Some of them were inevitably going to end up in the halving block.
Okay, so what?
Fees being high has a negative effect to Bitcoin as a whole. Just like the Bitcoin network will adjust the difficulty to make sure that blocks come in at every 10 minutes, the fee market is supposed to be a market that, again, you can bid up your transaction as much as you want. If you're not actually moving value, that's where I think one side has a stronger argument. But since
what do you mean not moving value? They are moving value.
They're not. They're moving their Bitcoin from one location to another that they both control. They're just trying to get a UTXO in that block.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So like they're not actually Bitcoin's not actually moving. It's a very small.
Weird. So they're spending Bitcoin to move Bitcoin?
They're spending Bitcoin to get unique UTXOs.
Okay.
And there are people who think that has value. And they think that they can transfer some of that value to people who are willing to pay for it. And in the process, take a little cut for themselves and that they have a business, right? It's shit coining on Bitcoin. That's all it is. It's just like all the
You said it. You were holding back, baby.
I'm not. Look, what they're doing, whether you can stop them or not, like it was able to be done. And so we have to live with it. It came, it went. Yes, there were some high fees, and there'll probably be high fees for a while. But fundamentally, like Bitcoin is not going to stay in a low fee environment forever.
Are they still high right now? What's high?
Well, when you're used to it being 1, and that's the lowest it can be, then everything after 1 is high, right?
Yeah.
So the negative effect that high fees have is that after a certain fee amount, certain UTXOs become what's called dust, meaning it's going to cost you more money to move it than the UTXO has.
Ooh.
Yeah, there are times, and there's a couple of Twitter accounts that I think the podcast account is following this Twitter account where when the mempool clears,
Mm-hmm.
the fees basically reset back down to 1. And so whenever the mempool clears, it tweets out a message, and then anybody who's been waiting thinking that the fees were too high,
Mm-hmm.
you put your transaction in then.
Mm-hmm.
So like my dad was here over the weekend, and my dad has a bunch of UTXOs. I didn't realize how small they were. I knew they were small, but my dad has a bunch of UTXOs that have like less than 10,000 Satoshis in them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I gave him a bit key, and we were going to move all of his Bitcoin and consolidate all of his UTXOs into one UTXO. This is also like right before the halving.
It was the night of the halving.
It was the night of the halving. And basically it was going to cost him a lot. He was basically going to burn a third of his UTXOs.
So what does it mean to burn a UTXO?
Let's just say I have 1 million Satoshis,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have one UTXO that is 500,000 Satoshis. I have one UTXO that is 400,000 Satoshis. And I have one UTXO that is 90,000 Satoshis. And I have one UTXO that is 10,000 Satoshis,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay. If I were to create a transaction where all of those UTXOs get merged together and come out at a new address as one UTXO,
Mm-hmm.
let's just say hypothetically, because of the fee environment, it was going to cost me 200,000 Satoshis. So at my final destination, I don't have 1 million Satoshis. I have 800,000 Satoshis.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say dust, it's that my 100,000 Satoshi and my 90,000 and my 10,000, all of those were dust.
Dust meaning what? Someone else took them.
No,
But they
meaning
disappear
that they went to
forever?
the miners as fees.
Oh, okay. They went to the miners as fees.
Right.
Okay.
So it's going to cost me 20% of 1 million Satoshis to move them in a high fee environment.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In a low fee environment, it would cost me like 3,000 Satoshis, meaning my 10,000 Satoshi UTXO is not dust. I'm still going to end up with some of that value as well. My dad has a lot of small ones, and like most of them were going to be dust. Most of them were just like, there's not enough value in that UTXO to move it.
Jeez.
So this is why people want the fee environment to be low. And so anything that kind of jacks the fee environment up, people are intrinsically against, especially in this particular case, if you're not moving value back and forth, if you're not actually moving money from one person to another.
And
right?
Lightning doesn't have fees?
Lightning, again, completely different stack, completely different thing that we're not getting into because that's not what the halving and
I
what
know,
you're
but
talking.
I'm just trying to understand.
So Lightning was created because of this same problem.
Right. So Lightning doesn't have fees?
Lightning has fees, but they are not tied to the fee environment.
And if you do something on Strike, there's no fees? Or there's always fees whenever you're moving your Bitcoin?
Anytime Bitcoin is moving on chain, there are fees. On Lightning, it is possible to move Bitcoin with no fees,
Mm-hmm.
but most people have some fee associated.
Mm.
If everyone on Lightning said, you can route Bitcoin through my node and I'm not going to charge you anything, then yeah, you could totally do that. You can move Bitcoin on Lightning for free. But
Mhm.
most people say, I'm at least charging you 1 sat. If you got to make 10 hops, that's 10 sats. But again, Lightning is not what this is about.
I know. I guess I just really was forgetting that there are fees associated with Bitcoin. And I don't feel like I'm paying fees when I move my money right now.
What money?
I guess when I pay my credit card bill.
Well, no, because every merchant that you swipe that card at paid the fees.
Yeah, they did. But what about me paying for something in cash?
Like actually handing someone cash, then yeah, there's
that's
no,
the only way
there's
that
no
you're not.
fees.
There's no fees. Yeah.
Yeah.
But with Bitcoin, there'll always be fees.
On Lightning, it's possible to have 0 fees. On chain, it is
No,
impossible.
It's it costs it costs money, energy. Yeah.
Yes.
Fair enough. This is like a vulnerability to Bitcoin. Everything else with Bitcoin is pretty nice, but it's like, it costs me money to move this. And I think that's where everyone's a little insecure. So that's why everyone got in their feelings and got salty with each other.
You just haven't been through a whole cycle of it. So like, yes, leading into the halving, there's always going to be like euphoria or whatever because it's a celebratory thing. It happens exactly when it says it's going to happen, and it will continue happening forever. Like there's nothing more certain than that in humanity at the moment. But fundamentally,
Ooh, nothing more certain in humanity.
well, I mean, what is it? Death and taxes. Well, it's death and taxes and
The halving.
and Yeah, and the halving.
What about the moon, sun?
The moon could disappear.
I guess it could, yeah.
The sun could disappear.
True.
And fundamentally,
if those things happened, the halving wouldn't happen either.
Why not?
Mankind would cease to exist.
Well, sure. If the moon disappears tomorrow, then yeah. But if the moon disappears in 1,000 years from now, who's to say that mankind hasn't left this solar system?
Yeah, that's
true. In which case, at least left this planet, in which case the moon's not such a big deal.
I thought we'd run out of Bitcoin in 100 years, though, so we're not going to have halvings in 1,000 years.
There will not be halvings in 1,000 years, but there will be blocks every 10 minutes.
That's true.
Right? So maybe not the halving is certain, but blocks are certain. TikTok, next block. As long as there's, 2 computers running Bitcoin, then the network exists.
Again, without the sun, I'm not really sure that computers will be running.
You are very limited in your thinking. Humanity is going to leave this solar system.
Yeah.
And then we will leave this galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will leave whatever we find outside of that.
But we're taking our Bitcoin with us.
By that point, we will need better Bitcoin, but it will fundamentally work the way that Bitcoin works. And there's a whole paper written on this.
So this was all an interesting thing for me to experience because, like I've been saying, I've kind of stepped into the internet side of Bitcoin, which is more the cultural side.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that I would be able to ask you about it. I would have been kind of turned off of Bitcoin after the halving.
Well, like I said last episode, I think Nostr is a better entry point for new Bitcoiners because Twitter has an algorithm. So Twitter is incentivized to feed you things that are generating the most engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And what it generates more engagement than an argument.
That's true.
So
I saw it on Nostr too, though.
It carried over to Nostr, right? I don't think that argument happens organically on Nostr. I think that argument happened algorithmically on Twitter and then migrated to Nostr.
You know this all better than I do.
Oh, no, I don't know this.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that Twitter has an algorithm that is designed to get engagement and Nostr doesn't. So unless Jack Dorsey or someone very popular on Nostr posted that when everybody was on, you just don't get that kind of engagement on Nostr. And then even if it does generate an argument, it doesn't get fed to everyone else who's not paying attention to it. You have to be following the people that are having the argument.
Yeah.
So it definitely started on Twitter and migrated to Nostr. I don't have any data to prove that, but I know that's what happened.
Yeah.
Every halving has some new scam like this.
All right. So you do think it's a scam?
Every cycle, there is something. Scam is the just general term.
So is this why Michael Saylor was saying that he doesn't want to invest in Bitcoin development? Because he's like, it's good what we got.
I don't think that I know enough about what Michael Saylor has said or is saying. People are telling me that he has said things and that he's doing things. But I think the argument that he has made is that we had a very big problem in the financial world. Bitcoin appears to have solved that. Leave it at that. You can still innovate further up the stack, but fundamentally, the Bitcoin layer 1 protocol is to just move value from address to address. And as long as it's doing that every 10 blocks and not creating more than 21 million Bitcoin, what else does this need to do?
Yeah.
Other people took that as he doesn't want to fund Bitcoin development and that he's against new things for Bitcoin. I don't think that's true, but I do think that there's a case to be made that says, well, this runes thing that's the new, oh, this is bad.
And that's on layer 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
That wasn't possible until some new code was entered during the last cycle. So new features were added to Bitcoin, which enabled this thing. And now we're complaining about this thing. Why would you add something else new that someone else is going to build something on that you're going to complain about? Leave it at what it is and let all the other innovation happen further up the stack. Lightning is the solution to the fee problem.
So, and that's layer 2.
That's layer 2.
So you haven't fully formed an opinion on this yet? Regardless of what Michael Saylor has said, you've got to have an opinion here.
My opinion is I think that people need to always be working on layer one. That does not necessarily mean that they need to be adding new features, but I do think people need to be, at the bare minimum, fixing bugs as they come up.
So how does any of this affect me? Or does it? Because there were like people upset and I just kept thinking, I mean, my life hasn't changed.
I mean, there's like the like sarcastic way this affects you, and then there's like the actual way that this affects you, right? So like the sarcastic way this affects you is that if we were to add a feature to Bitcoin that caused it to be impossible to move money on Bitcoin, either via a bug or via someone creating something like runes, but way worse, and just like totally broke Bitcoin, that would affect you.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. The more actual way this affects you is you didn't know what dust was. And so like, if you don't know what dust is and you don't truly understand how the fee market work and how things cost money to move, and you have 1 million Satoshis and you go to move it and you end up with 500,000 Satoshis and you're like, what the heck happened? And you don't understand the fee market because someone created something like runes.
So how do you even move stuff on the Bitcoin network, like in layer one? I don't even know how to do that. Are you laughing at me? Wow, this isn't really a safe learning environment. I don't feel comfortable right now.
No,
I don't feel supported.
Time out. I'm laughing because either yesterday or the day before, I said to Vandana, look, I'm just giving you shit when I say you're not a Bitcoiner. Like, you're obviously more of a Bitcoiner than like everyone else around us. You're a Bitcoiner. I'm just giving you shit about it. And in our next recording, she's like, I don't know how to make a Bitcoin transaction.
I don't.
I know. So, like, which one is it, Vandana?
You know what?
Which one is
This
it?
is my problem with this toxicity in the Bitcoin world.
This is not toxicity.
No, why do I need to know that? Because whole idea
if you can't move Bitcoin, you don't have Bitcoin.
I can do it on Lightning.
How?
You're telling you to move it off a wallet?
I want to understand what you're saying, what you mean when you say I can move it on Lightning. What does that mean to you?
That means that I can put in an address.
A Lightning address.
Lightning address.
Okay.
And hit send.
Okay. So I have two questions. Where is that that Bitcoin coming from? Where is that Lightning Bitcoin going to?
It's coming from me.
Where is it?
My Lightning address, my wallet.
What is it? Name it. Strike?
Yes, Strike.
Okay. So it's coming from Strike?
Yes.
Okay.
We're talking about Strike.
Where is it going?
It's going to another Strike wallet.
Okay. You don't have any Bitcoin.
Because it's not on a cold wallet.
You don't have Bitcoin.
Can I send it to a cold wallet from Strike?
Yes, and it'll be an on-chain transaction.
Oh, okay. So when I'm doing that, do I get told what the fees are going to be?
Yes, they tell you.
Strike will tell you, and then I can say accept?
Yes.
Okay.
What you can't do on Strike is you cannot bid yourself up.
Good.
Sure. But if you were, okay, so.
You just got real intense with me. I got nervous. You made me stutter.
But this is important, right? Is that, so you're saying that you don't need to know how to do these things. You'll do them on Strike. Okay, cool. So then one day you go to do what you just said. You're going to move some Bitcoin off Strike into your cold wallet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't pay attention to the fees because whatever.
But you said Strike is going to show me first what the fees are.
They will show you, but they're not really showing you the fee per se. They're asking you how fast do you want this to move.
Yeah, you're right. That is what they ask.
So they'll say within 10 minutes, which means the next block, within hour, which means like 6 blocks, and then within 24 hours, right? If you're only paying attention to how fast you want it to move and you pick 10 minutes and the fee environment says you have to pay 1,000 sats per V-byte because of this runes project. Again, you moved 1 million Satoshis and you end up with 500,000 Satoshis and you're like, what the heck happened?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Strike needs to fix that.
It's not Strike's fault. It's not Strike's problem.
But I know it's not their problem, but
because Strike gives you 3 options.
Yeah.
You did not have to pick the fastest one, number one.
But why doesn't it just tell me, hey, it'll cost this much if you want to do it
They do
right
tell
now?
you. They tell you the exact amount in dollars and sats. I'm saying you're not looking at that.
Oh.
You're only looking at how fast do I want it to
I've
move.
never really sent, but yeah.
Right. Which is why I'm laughing. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So my point is that if you're moving Bitcoin from Strike to Strike, then you don't have Bitcoin and that Bitcoin basically never moved. Right. If you're moving Bitcoin from Strike to a cold wallet, that is an on-chain transaction. You need to know how to do that. Right.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it in that fashion, then you do need to know how to do a transaction. So in order for
apparently I know how to do a transaction.
But what I'm saying is that in order for you to actually have Bitcoin, you have to know how to do a transaction. It's impossible to have Bitcoin, legitimately have Bitcoin, and not do at least one on-chain transaction.
Got it.
Because you've never moved Bitcoin to a place that you have the keys to.
Why is the label Bitcoiner so important to you?
It's not important, but like you said something and I was just like, I'm just giving you crap, like for the purpose of the show. And then literally, why do I need to make a transaction?
I was like, Ian, I've been thinking about it. I think I'm a Bitcoiner. It was very confrontational on my part. And Ian just giggled in my face.
You don't have to do an on-chain transaction and buy the ETF. You don't have to do a transaction to move Bitcoin from Strike to Albi or Primal or any of these other like Lightning wallets, right? Because they're all, I'm trying to stop saying custodial.
It's a dirty word.
Well, it's not that it's a dirty word. I think this is one of those things that we've like misdescribed. So like we call like non-custodial wallets good and custodial bad, but non is a negative. So it doesn't really jive with regular people when you say like non-custodial is good and custodial is bad. So I was thinking like there's either sovereign or non-sovereign.
Yeah, self-custody.
Self-custody, that's okay. Too complex, right? Okay. It's either sovereign, meaning you and only you, or it's non-sovereign, meaning someone else is involved.
Yeah.
Right? And so in order for you to move Bitcoin from a Strike or a Cash App or whatever to any of these places that you still don't actually have the Bitcoin to a place that you control, you don't have to be sovereign to have Bitcoin, but you're not sovereign if you don't have Bitcoin because someone else is holding your money still.
You're very riled up about this.
Knowing how to make a transaction and why that's the only way to have Bitcoin, like that's literally Bitcoin 101.
You know, you sound like all these people on Twitter. If you don't know this, you're not a Bitcoiner.
I'm saying if you don't actually have Bitcoin, you can't be called a Bitcoiner. And if you don't know how to make an on-chain transaction, which means you've never moved Bitcoin into your own custody, then by definition, you're not a Bitcoiner.
I guess I'm not a Bitcoiner. No. I might be married to a Bitcoiner if he tells you you're not a Bitcoiner.
The thing is that you've done transactions, right?
Yes.
Like you've moved money into cold storage. No, you've done it into cold storage. I had you do it.
Yes, right? Yes. Fees were like not high, so we weren't even thinking about it.
Not even the fees. It's that you don't do it often.
Yeah.
Because you don't do it often, you're like, well, I got Bitcoin and I'm a Bitcoiner and I don't have to know how this works until you need to move it.
You know what's interesting is like, if you want to get into Bitcoin and be a Bitcoiner, as you're saying, and like sovereignly hold your wealth, it's not a one-time thing. So yeah, like you have to just be up on it all the time.
Yes and no. This kind of goes back to my boat analogy from earlier. If you're going to live on a boat and you have to sail it from location to location, in order to actually use that boat as a boat and get to another location, you have to know how to sail. Someone on the boat has to know how to sail. Otherwise,
yeah, but knowing how to sail doesn't change. Whereas like, let's say you're a Bitcoin pirate and you're at sea and you've unplugged for 8 months and you come back and you go and it's the halving and you're at a bar and you go to buy something and you do an on-chain transaction and it costs you like a Bitcoin because you didn't know about runes.
It cost you a Bitcoin is a little extreme.
It's a little extreme, but you get what I'm saying. Like you just said in this episode that like you need to know about runes because these are the ways that it can impact you.
You don't need to know about runes. That is like knowing about Ethereum. You don't need to know about them. But what you do need to know is that there are things that can be built on the protocol that can artificially increase the fees. And so you do need to pay attention to the fee environment, right?
Okay.
So when my dad was here and I was like getting him set up with the BitKey, I saw how much it was going to cost and I was like, we're not doing that right now.
So when you saw the fees go up, were you like, it's those damn runes? Or were you like, what's causing this?
Me personally, I knew it was the runes.
Of course you did.
Right. But so you're making the case that everyone needs to be up on everything. You're not making the case, but like,
I'm asking. I'm trying to understand it. I'm trying to, as I try to talk to other people about Bitcoin, I'm like, What am I really getting them into?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
And before I forget, I want to read something to you because
A love poem? A sonnet?
No. This guy on Twitter had a really great analogy for the runes, right? And so I think
that was a close guess.
Yeah, very close, very close.
I guess we're still on runes. Okay, what did he say?
I'm going to link to this in the show description because his username is some crazy set of characters. I'm not reading them out. Runes, a Bitcoin analogy. Pretend an airport gives the right to a casino to operate within their passenger terminal. It generates revenue. Passengers like it. They sell drinks. It generates attention, yada, yada, yada. The casino in the airport is well lit, neon signs, and advertised. So everyone in the airport knows that there's a casino in the airport. The casino gets more and more popular to gamblers, even people who don't fly. However, to enter the airport at all, aka get past security, the gamblers now have to pretend to be passengers and they have to buy a plane ticket. They got to buy a ticket, stand in line, and go through security, just like all the people that want to get on planes. They have to have a plane ticket no matter what the market rate is. However, once they get through security, they just throw it out. They never get on the plane. Over time, the plane tickets get more and more expensive as more and more get sold because people want to go into the casino. And however, there are no passengers on planes anymore because everyone's buying a ticket, going in the airport, and then going directly to the casino. So what does this cause? The planes are packed, ticket prices are still at an all-time high, lines are long, but the planes are empty. The airlines realize what's going on, and they figure out, hey, who cares? We're making money, tickets are getting sold. Meanwhile, actual passengers who want to fly somewhere are priced out and don't want the long lines and extra expense of flying. The casino is packed and discarded plane tickets. This is like not the best written, but I think you see where this is going.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, yada, yada, yada. I won't read it all because it's long, but the point here is that you're always going to have somebody going, who cares? We're making money. And so half of the group is saying, who cares? Right? Like Bitcoin's working how Bitcoin works. You bid up your fee and you get into the casino, right? And other people are saying, no, there are people that are actually trying to fly somewhere. And your little schmuck scheme over here called runes is actually causing empty planes to fly across the country that were paid for just so that you can have like a unique ticket number.
Yeah, I do think it's a good analogy.
Yeah, right? Okay, so
I agree.
I'll link it in the show notes if someone wants to read the whole thing. But this is a very good way to explain what's going on with runes. And this is a good way to explain in a variation everything that happened before, where someone goes, yeah, but who cares? And it's like, no, like actually sit and think about this for like 30 more seconds. And if you think about it for 30 more seconds, in this example, it says the people that actually want to get on the planes and fly can't because it's too expensive, because you're doing some nonsense that's not what it's supposed to be. And now nobody is going to fly. Like if you're causing the airports to have empty planes flying across the country, like something is wrong. And that alone is like, while you can, maybe you shouldn't. But because we have an open protocol where anyone could do whatever they want, we have to let runes exist. We have to let runes flame out just like everything else. And then at the next halving, no one's going to be talking about runes, guaranteed.
I saw like this one post that was saying everyone who says Bitcoin is for everybody is wrong. This is why Bitcoin is not for everybody. And then someone was like, it's not Bitcoin is for everybody. It's Bitcoin is for anybody.
Yeah, I think, Bitcoin is for your enemies.
Yeah.
Whether you're a friend to them or not, like it doesn't matter. I don't want you to be able to take my Bitcoin, just like I don't want to be able to take your Bitcoin. As long as no one can take each other's Bitcoin, everything after that is like, I guess, a moral hazard at best. But they spent tens of Bitcoin to try to get this scam off the ground. They're willing to pay it. Will they be willing to pay it forever?
Yeah, that's true.
Like
I mean, they're making money.
We already went through this with ordinals. We already went through this with inscriptions.
Are ordinals done?
They exist in the sense that if you want to make ordinals, you can. But like after ordinals happened, the fees came back down.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a spike, grumble, grumble, grumble. We'll figure out that runes don't work either, or enough people will lose money and just get out of that as well. And then it'll go back to normal. And like I said, we will not be talking about runes at the next halving. It's literally impossible. Hey gang, it's Ian. Let's chat for a second. Bitcoiner or not, I know We're all feeling anxious to save more money lately. But do you want to know why you're feeling that way? It's because you're still thinking in fiat. Seeing the price of everything go up in your local currency, that's what's driving you crazy. That's where all this anxiety is coming from. Meanwhile, the reality is everything is actually getting cheaper on Bitcoin Island. And you might ask yourself, how do I get to Bitcoin Island? Simple. Bitcoin Island is just a state of mind, and you need to train your brain to think in Bitcoin. Your first training exercise is to set a Bitcoin goal using the Satoshi Savings Calculator made by yours truly. And your goal should be to always have more Bitcoin today than you did yesterday. It's literally that simple. This way, the amount of Bitcoin you have only goes up. And once you start to think in Bitcoin, over time, everything around you becomes cheaper. You'll be way more confident about the future. No more anxiety. Look, we don't need to overcomplicate this. You're still early, but you gotta be strategic. And you gotta unlearn everything they taught you about money. So go to flirtingwithbitcoin.com and train your brain to think in Bitcoin with the Satoshi Savings Calculator.
So one of the really fun things about being on Nostr and Twitter is that I'm connecting with so many of our listeners, and it happens when I least expect it. So somebody posted on Nostr earlier today, amuse me, I've had a crippling migraine and spasms last 3 days. It's awful. I grew toxic, bitchy, and pathetic. Basically turned into a Twitter user. Comment with some funny BS and I'll zap away everybody until I run out, which will be soon because I'm poor, so hurry up. And it's a really funny Ali G gif that says like dance for me. And I was like, you know what? I totally found something really amazing on the internet recently and I shared it with them, which is theforestjar.com. It's like the cutest little cartoons that are really insightful and the voices are really great. I love them. It's called theforestjar.com and I'll make Ian put it in the show notes. So I put that link in there. And then the person ended up loving it, like reposting it. And I was like, this is the cutest thing. Thank you. And I was like, hey, I hope, you know, your headache feels better. And then a little while later, they go, wait, you're that chick voice from Flirting with Bitcoin. Oh, no. I always imagined you as a blonde with some a messy bun and like a tennis white outfit, big boobs. I don't know why. I'll have to give that voice a totally new face and probably more respectable clothing. And then I'm like, wait, I thought this was a woman. And then I look at the photo and I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is just a woman's photo and profile, but really it's a guy running it. I didn't quite understand. But I said, I did multiple laughing faces and I said, that's hilarious and amazing. I'm very sorry to disappoint because I was like, I don't know if you're disappointed now that you've seen my face, but that is not what I look like, guys. And she said that you sound like a younger Dolly Parton. It's very much okay. And I said, hey, whatever keeps your attention on Bitcoin. And then they said, no, I'm a married woman and enjoy objectifying other women. I'm also a maxi, but you guys run a really neat podcast. And then she put like a beautiful photo of Dolly Parton. And so I think it's so funny that this is what she thought I looked like, because I definitely do not think that's what my voice is. Look at your face, Ian. You're like, I don't see it. But I think it's so funny. And I will say like, yeah, first season, all of a sudden we kind of blew up on Fountain. And all of these comments had come in about my voice, and some of them were a little. So we used to get a lot of comments about it, but it was so funny that I got a comment, and that wasn't even a weird comment, but it was just so funny that it was from a woman who had just decided I was like a Dolly Parton-esque person named Mandana. I don't get it.
Yeah, that is hilarious.
It was such a funny experience, but like it means so much to me whenever somebody just out of nowhere is like, I really like your show. I'm like, oh my God, you listen to us. That's insane. I still can't believe it. I don't know if it's 2 Satoshi for your thoughts or a Satoshi for your thoughts. I just don't know, I assume a Satoshi is going to be worth more than a penny. What do you think about my internet activity? Do you think that it's going to help my Bitcoin journey, or do you think or could it like kind of make the whole you teaching me things a little less authentic if I'm like, seeing some things for myself without you telling me?
I think that there's only good that can come from it. Again, especially if you're on Nostr, there's no algorithm. So you're only going to find interesting what you find, right? And the more I think about this idea, the more I'm like, just going to repeat it. New Bitcoiners should be on Nostr. Put it on a t-shirt, whatever. On Twitter, I think your experience will be very different, as I've said before. And on Twitter, I think is where you would find more of the argument, debate of like how Bitcoin should work. And I think on Nostr, you're going to find more of what you just experienced, which is she's a maxi, but like, you know, I'm sure she's not arguing about how to cook her steak, right? Or like, I'm pretty sure she's not doing.
I just met her, but I like her.
Right. But it's like, she's probably not doing 100 push-ups till 100K. You know, like there's just certain things that are just not going to, you know, surface to you based on who you follow. So I do think it'll be beneficial to your journey in general, because I'm curious to see what version of Bitcoin you find.
You know, the version of Bitcoin I found is like we're all like aware of Bitcoin, but also like, let's have fun.
Yeah, sure. And that, you know, that side exists too. And I think those are the people that will be in my Bitcoin flotilla.
Yeah, probably.
Right? Like,
yeah.
The traveling circus has got to have some people that find this idea interesting at the minimum.
You know, Coffee Chain on Nostr is pretty chill. Those are my people. Those are people who just like, I'm going to sit for a second and take a photo of my point of view, drinking my coffee. Like, y'all have a good day.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody is like that on the internet. Most people are not like that on the internet.
Well, I would argue that there are a lot of people like that on the internet. It's just that the algorithms keep you away from them.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they don't generate an argument. They don't generate a fight. And unless it's the best picture of coffee ever taken, just keep it moving. Like who's going to see it to like it? We're going to argue about whether it's the best picture ever taken of coffee. Like if you can start that argument on Twitter, more power to you, right? That's why I think that Nostr is a better place to start. And I think, like I said, I'm curious to see what like your version of, forget your version of the internet or your version of Twitter, just like what is your version of Bitcoin? Again, Nostr is new and different. And so not everyone is Nostr only for sure. And not everyone is even on Nostr.
Nostr only is like probably a really interesting experience. But I'm on multiple social media apps. Like
sure.
It's exhausting. But things I do for our show, I'm on Instagram. I am on TikTok, Twitter, and Nostr. And then personally for the parent groups and whatnot, I'm on Facebook for, us personally. So it's just exhausting. And also I'm in a lot of pop-in group chats. As you can imagine, my social life is also a lot of fun. So
yeah. And
I'm on my phone a lot. It's still like very surprising to me that there are people that are going into an app throughout the day to just talk to people about whatever, like connecting with people online. This is not something I've ever really done. So that's been a unique experience where I'm like, how do you guys, I'm doing this for like a passion project. Like you're just doing this because you're escaping the world into your phone.
I strongly disagree with that sentiment.
All right, tell me, because I've never used Twitter. So this is really different for me.
This is even before Twitter is my point. You're basically saying that you've never made friends on the internet. You brought your friend network to the internet with you. And you have all these pop-in group chats. And
I found my husband on the internet on an app. Oh, that's not true. I used to be an elite Yelper, and I met so many people through that. And I would go to events in person.
But you met them in person, right?
So afterwards, after meeting them.
So you eventually met them in person. Yeah. Okay. What I'm saying is that you've never had like you've never created internet only friends. Where you had a large group of people.
Nope.
Exactly.
Yeah. You video gamers do though, right?
It predates video games.
Yeah.
So the original idea of the internet was just to connect a bunch of colleges. And so colleges could share information. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, there was another person on the other side. You were probably not going to meet that person for a while. And so the internet has always been about making friends with strangers. It's just that you kind of came of age and came on the internet when a lot of that stuff had been built out for you. Mm-hmm. So you just brought your real life friend network to the social graph, and y'all just used the tools to communicate. And now you don't all have to live in the same city or, whatever. But for someone like me, like when I was in tech school, me and two of my friends used to always walk off base and play video games. And the games we were playing were just purely online. I made tons of friends online that I never met to this day. I followed them through other games and I never met them, right?
But like, what's the point of that?
The point of that is
value that brings.
The point is that there are people that have been operating like that their entire lives. So to you, this is like a new behavior for you.
It is.
But for a lot of these people, and I'll be very like honest about it. Like even I can't be online around a bunch of strangers like that. And I've grew up in that world. Like even I'm like, oh, that's too much, guys.
I mean, you're bad at texting me back. I can't even imagine you being like super engagey with a bunch of people all day long. I feel like you'd be emotionally exhausted.
It's not
personally.
It's not the engagement. I can engage if we're doing an activity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the act of communicating as an activity.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if we're playing a video game, we need to communicate information to win or lose. Oh, I'm very responsive and reactive, right? But if it's just like sitting on Twitter, just talking back and forth to like people that live on the other side of the world, like
baby, you don't even do that with me.
Sure. But what I'm getting at is that like you did not grow up with that internet culture. I did.
Yeah.
And so it seems foreign to you. And all I'm saying is that there are 40 and 50-year-old men who have lived their lives for like 40 years like that.
Wow.
Or more.
Cool.
Right? Because we've all been talking online since like, again, if you weren't part of like DARPANET and all that fun stuff, like since easily the late 80s.
I was like 3.
There you go.
I mean, it's cool. I'm seeing a new side of the internet and people and humanity. It's cool. It's fun to dip my toes into it. Everyone's being really nice and receptive, and I post stuff with typos, and that like kills my heart. I have to either delete it on Twitter or it's like forever on Nostr. But other than that, I mean, it's really not that dramatic. It's fun.
Yeah. What I just described with like the internet and connecting people, like I said, you came to that world with your social graph intact and you kind of just used all the tools. I see the same thing happening for Bitcoin, right? Like we don't really have like Facebook for Bitcoin yet.
You know what I just remembered? I used to be a very different person. Like I would say 8 years ago, I was really active on Facebook and I would post a lot and I just had a lot of opinions on what was happening in the world. I will say when I met Ian in 2016, something happened when I met Ian because I also, in addition to just wanting to spend time with Ian and not be on an app that Ian wasn't, like Ian was not really active on Facebook and eventually turned it off. It's also like the world was just becoming very divided and the internet was just becoming like, ugh, you know? And in general, less people were going on Facebook. But I used to post on Facebook and get like hundreds of likes. And I think maybe I had 800 Facebook friends. And I had started getting friended by people I didn't know who had seen like their friend like their stuff. And it was weird. Sometimes those people would want to talk to me. And other times like someone would friend me and I would just like not accept it because I was like, this is just supposed to be like my personal account where I share pictures of my life, you know? As that happened, I really just stopped using Facebook for what it was intended for, right? Which is like to share things about your own life, and it just became an opinion thing. So I think I was kind of turning into like tweeting on Facebook, which a lot of people still do, but that whole experience was just it was just very negative.
Again, the algorithm encourages that.
It really does. And so when I'm on Twitter and I see it, because right now the way that I use social media is just like incredibly positive. I don't like negative things. I don't follow news, anything that's like political. I don't follow any of those things on social media. Like I just go to websites, right? When I want to read up on things. I started that a while ago and it's just amazing. But you get on Bitcoin Twitter and there's all of that can kind of like seep in, and it's the side of the internet that I've really been protecting myself from. And so I definitely don't like that. And that's it's everywhere. Like, it's hard to not politicize Bitcoin.
I don't think it exists yet, but I do think that there is still a product to be built on Nostr. I don't want to say with a sprinkling of AI, but like some type of filtering that will allow people to keep other things out without having to like unfollow people.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, you like Coffee Chain, but if someone drops a link to an article about either a specific topic or maybe a specific domain, you might just say like, you know what? I don't even want to see that.
Yeah, if there's hashtags on it,
if
like,
it's got,
leave it out.
Or if it's got like, just, throw it out there. Like if it's got Fox News in it, I don't care, right? Like, just keep that away from me. That doesn't exist yet. But with Nostr, anyone could build that versus with Twitter.
They're
Twitter
making those decisions.
Yeah. And so,
yeah, I'm with you. I would love to decide those things about what I see. And it's not because I'm like, I don't want to interact with anyone who thinks differently from me. That's not what it is. It's that I don't want my body to be traumatized by horrific images and news when I'm just trying to casually scroll through a social media app. Call me crazy.
Yeah, no, again, like the algorithm just ramps that up on everything else. So there's that. I just have so much hope for Nostr. Like,
yeah, I understand why you do.
I just think again, just like people can't fathom deflation, people cannot fathom. I mean, ironically, this is where we started, which is like MySpace, where like you had to go to someone's page to see what they said, right? It's like, no, just Facebook was like, we're going to just shove it all down your face. You're just going to deal with it. Nostr is like, it's both, right? It's like, you got to find the people to first follow them. But then at the same time, it's like, but once you follow them, it's like you're only getting the most recent thing they sent you. You're not getting the most popular.
Yeah, and this isn't a Nostr podcast. It's a Bitcoin podcast. You used to say that to me, remember? But I do see that if you are new to Bitcoin, or you're even someone who's trying to like contribute to Bitcoin, I think you'll meet more people on Nostr than on Twitter.
Yeah, because the loud people on Twitter, they're just very large entities, and so they can't respond to everyone.
They have full-time jobs around their Twitter activity. Like, more power to them.
Now, what has been happening a lot in the past, like, I'd say 3 months, is people just straight up deleting their Twitter accounts and saying, I'm Nostr full-time. I haven't done that yet, but I'd be surprised if I make it out of this year with a Twitter account. We'll have the Flirting with Bitcoin account for podcast reasons. But
I get it, babe. When you're done with an app, you're done with an app.
It's not that when I'm done with an app, it's that like I already don't have the app installed on my phone. I go to Twitter via my browser.
I know, that's what you told me. I do that too.
But Twitter is like, because it's there, it kind of calls me. Like, I'm curious. It's like, click it. And then before I know it, it's like 30 minutes have gone by. And I'm just like, oh, you got me again, Twitter. When I go to Nostr, my brain eventually sends the signal that's like, you're done.
That's how I feel about Twitter, both. I go on Twitter and I'm like, that's it. And I get off. And then I'm like, I literally am like, no, man, then I like, go do something, learn, find something to repost for the pod. And so I think it's because I haven't been in this world enough that there's nothing like interesting for me when I hop in and look at it.
It also depends on who the account actually follows, which I don't think our podcast account follows a lot of people on Twitter.
Oh, I don't know. Go add people I need to listen to. And if you want us to follow you on any of these apps, hit us up. I don't follow people on all of them though, but it's because if I don't follow you, it's because I don't use that profile that much. But on Twitter and Nostr, I will follow you back because I will actually be able to see your stuff and engage with you, hopefully.
And to close this out, I want to tie Nostr all the way back to the topic of the show. You could never have zaps on chain. So zaps is a purely Lightning functionality. With zaps, if you have your thing set up correctly, like fundamentally your zaps are 0 fees.
That's true.
Now, there are people who can zap in a sovereign way, but most people are zapping in a non-sovereign way. So what that means is if you bring someone into Bitcoin fresh tomorrow and you get them set up with enough where they can also go on Nostr and zap, it is possible that they could build up a large Satoshi stack and never actually have any Bitcoin because it's not being held in a sovereign way. So they feel like they're a Bitcoiner. They feel like, oh man, I posted all this content and I got like 1 million Satoshis in Albi. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but like Albi could rug pull everyone.
So you got to know how to take it off. And the only way you can do that is knowing how to make a transaction. And that's the first time you're going to get hit with fees. And you might be moving fees for zero amount that entire time. And the day you go to do it is when runes are in effect and half of your Bitcoin gets those damn runes
taken because of fees, right? So like, that's why I'm saying like the transaction is important, but Nostr kind of is the way to like bring someone in and give them some Bitcoin and a better Bitcoin experience and social media and all that fun stuff, but you still have to learn the basics.
No shortcuts, people. Thanks for listening to the show.
Now, let's get you set up on Fountain so you can start earning some money simply by listening to podcasts.
Go to fountain.fm to download the app.
Once your app is set up, search for Flirting with Bitcoin and hit follow.
Listen to our show and episodes from your other favorite podcasts to earn your first Satoshis, which are fractions of a Bitcoin.
And make sure to keep an eye out for our promoted episodes.
You can earn up to 100 Satoshis just for listening.
Pretty cool, huh?
You can use those sats you've earned to send us a boost, like a little payment with a message.
And I swear, we try to respond to everyone.
Every episode, we shout out the top boosters.
To support us or other podcasters with more sats, you can top up your Fountain wallet with a bank card or lightning transfer from apps like Strike or Cash App.
The easiest way to learn is to get started.
Now, you're all set up for podcasting 2.0.